Alright, listen. Your backlog is probably huge, mine's honestly a mess too. But you know how there are those games you just have to experience before you finally log off for good? The ones that stick with you for years after the credits roll? I've got you covered with 20 of them. The absolute best of the best, from legendary open-world epics to unique experiences you won't believe you almost missed. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Subnautica. Deep sea exploration is usually a secondary feature in most games, but Subnautica makes the entire world an alien ocean that wants to eat you. You are the lone survivor of a spaceship crash, and you have to build a base and upgrade your equipment to find a way off the planet. The atmosphere is incredible because it goes from a bright and colorful coral reef to a pitch-black abyss filled with giant leviathans in a matter of seconds. In a weird way, it is a horror game disguised as a survival craft game because the sounds of the ocean are genuinely unsettling when you are low on oxygen. So then you find yourself constantly balancing the need for resources with the fear of what is hiding in the kelp forests around you. Kind of the opposite of most open worlds, you are exploring vertically, which adds a whole new dimension to how you navigate the map. The story is told through PDA logs and environmental clues, which makes the mystery feel much more rewarding to solve on your own. It is a unique experience that proves you do not need a massive map full of icons to make a world feel alive and dangerous. Control.
I've been searching for this place. And now, it's my responsibility.
This is one of those games that just has a vibe, you know? Remedy is really good at that. The weird, unsettling, bureaucratic nightmare energy. You walk into the oldest house, which is this brutalist government building in Manhattan, and nothing makes sense. Like the corridors shift, the lights flicker, and there's even a janitor who seems to know way more than he should. And you're just supposed to figure it out. The combat is where it really sings. You get this service weapon that can transform into different forms. Pistol, shotgun, sniper, whatever you need. But the real star is the telekinesis. You're ripping chunks of concrete out of the walls and hurling them at enemies. You're throwing office furniture, file cabinets, entire forklifts. The office building becomes your weapon. And the physics, man. Everything breaks, everything flies. You get into these fights where there's debris floating everywhere, papers flying, chunks of wall missing, and you're just levitating in the middle of it all, launching whatever you can grab. It's chaos. The story is classic Remedy. You're piecing together what happened to this place, what the hiss actually is, why there's a floating pyramid thing that seems to be in charge. It's the kind of story that rewards you for reading every collectible and watching every video, which I know some people don't have patience for. But if you lean into it, it's so rewarding. The expansions add a lot too. The AWE one ties directly into Alan Wake, which is cool if you're into that shared universe stuff. And the other one, The Foundation, takes you deeper into the oldest house's origins. It's not a long game, maybe 15 hours for the main story, but it's dense. Every room has a secret, every hallway leads somewhere weird. It's the kind of game you think about long after you've finished it. Death Stranding, Director's Cut.
You see, I've come to understand the truth of the Death Stranding.
Look, I know this game is divisive. People either call it a masterpiece or a walking simulator, and honestly, both takes kind of make sense. But here's the thing about the director's cut on PS5. It's the version that finally feels like what Kojima actually wanted to make, because the DualSense integration is insane. You're carrying all this cargo on your back, balancing with the triggers, and you can literally feel the weight shift in your hands. Like, if you're trudging through snow, the triggers tighten up. You're fighting to keep your balance. It's stressful in a way that actually works for the whole vibe of the game. Then there's the 3D audio, which, if you're playing with headphones, makes the BTs feel genuinely terrifying. You hear them circling you, breathing, and you don't know where they're gonna grab from. I mean, the original was already a weird, beautiful experience, but this version, it's got a racing mode, a cargo catapult, a jump ramp that lets you do tricks mid-air. It's like they just dumped a bunch of arcade nonsense into this melancholic delivery sim, and somehow it doesn't break the tone. It just makes it more Kojima, which is to say, absurd in the best way. Honestly, the first time I played this on PS4, I wasn't sure. The second time on PS5, I was hooked. It's one of those games that clicks when the tech actually supports the vision. You know what else they added? A firing range where you can just mess around with all the weapons, which sounds small, but in a game about avoiding combat, it's actually nice to have a space to just go wild. And the BB pod customization, you can dress up your little baby jar, which is weird, but so is everything else here. It's a game that asks you to buy into its specific brand of weirdness, and the director's cut makes that leap way easier. Grand Theft Auto 5.
Now, don't you step foot in this yard.
Why? It's half my house.
Now, I'ma call the police.
For what?
Disloyalty, boy.
Disloyalty? What is you talking about? Don't act like you don't know what it is, homeboy. Yo.
Most of us grew up playing this one, and it is wild that Grand Theft Auto 5 is still one of the most popular games in the world over a decade later. This is one of those games that barely needs an introduction because it already feels like part of gaming culture. You follow three very different guys through heists, bad choices, and a city that never stops acting like a problem. Los Santos is the real monster here, in the best way possible. It is huge, crowded, and full of things to do that have nothing to do with the main story. You can be planning a major robbery one minute and launching a car off a hill the next because the game just lets chaos happen. That freedom is still a huge part of why people keep going back. The mission design is strong, the character switching keeps things moving, and the open world is packed with enough detail to make simple driving feel weirdly fun. Sure, it has been around forever at this point, but it earned that longevity. The cultural impact alone is ridiculous, and the gameplay still holds up because Rockstar knew how to make the Sandbox feel alive. The thing is, GTA 5 is not trying to be a quiet, thoughtful, open-world game. It is trying to be a giant playground with crimes, satire, and perfect excuse for one more detour. And that is why this game still works, even with all these new big open-world game releases. And with the upcoming Grand Theft Auto 6, I believe it will set a new standard for the open-world genre, which is what we are always expecting from Rockstar games. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End.
Oh, quite the crow's nest, huh?
There it is. Just on the other side of the river.
Uncharted 4 on PlayStation 4 is great, but we're not talking about that. What we have here is the Legacy of Thieves collection on PS5, which bundles this with The Lost Legacy. But honestly, Uncharted 4 is the one that hits. This is Nathan Drake's send-off. After everything, the treasure hunts, the near-death experiences, the buildings collapsing behind him, he's retired, living a normal life with Elena. And then his brother Sam shows up, the brother who was supposed to be dead. And suddenly Drake is back in the game, lying to his wife, risking everything for one last score. The story is so much heavier than the earlier games. It's not just quippy one-liners and impossible action sequences anymore. It's about addiction, about what you sacrifice for the thrill. Drake has to decide what matters more, the adventure or the people he loves. And the game makes you feel that tension. You're climbing these massive cliffs in Madagascar, swinging with the grappling hook, and the whole time you know you're betraying Elena's trust. It's uncomfortable in a way that Naughty Dog is really good at. The set pieces are ridiculous. There's this chase through a Scottish city where you're jumping between cars, climbing onto trucks, the whole thing is falling apart around you. And the final sequence in Libertalia, this pirate utopia hidden in the jungle, is one of the most beautiful levels ever designed. The combat is smoother now, you've got stealth options, more verticality, the grappling hook opens up new traversal. But honestly, the thing that sticks with me is the ending. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'm telling you, the overall playthrough is absolutely worth it. It's Naughty Dog at the height of their powers, saying goodbye to the character that built them and doing it with class. It's the perfect ending to one of gaming's best series. The Last of Us Part 1.
Dad?
I'm here, baby. I'm here. Come on, give me your hand.
The Last of Us Part 1 is kind of tempting to call a zombie game, but honestly, the fungus are just the background noise. Looking back, the way Naughty Dog handled the relationship between Joel and Ellie is still the gold standard for the industry. It's a raw, brutal look at what people become when the world stops pretending to be civilized. You start as this broken man who's lost everything, and you're tasked with escorting a girl who might be the key to fixing it all. But the thing that still gets me is that it's not a story about saving the world. It's a story about two people finding a reason to keep going in a world that doesn't want them. The nights are terrifying, because it's not just the clickers you're worried about, it's the other survivors who have completely lost their humanity. So you are constantly making these ugly, desperate choices just to see the next morning, which makes those quiet moments, like the giraffes or just a joke from Ellie's book, feel incredibly earned. I've always appreciated how the game doesn't pull its punches. It's visceral, it's violent, and it's deeply uncomfortable at times. So the combat feels heavy and desperate because every bullet counts and every mistake could be the end. It's the kind of game that forces you to justify the things you're doing in the name of love. The legacy of this one is basically bulletproof at this point. Even after all these years and a full remake, that final act still sparks some of the most intense debates in gaming. It's a bold choice to have a protagonist that isn't necessarily a good guy, but that's why it works. It's one of those must-experience situations because it treats its characters like actual people, flaws and all. Just a masterclass in pacing and emotional weight. Still hits just as hard as the first time. Demon's Souls Remake. Look, before Dark Souls was a household name, before Elden Ring sold 20 million copies, there was this weird, janky PS3 game that nobody really understood. And Bluepoint went and rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up for PS5. Which is wild when you think about it. They took the game that invented the genre and made it feel like it just came out yesterday. The thing that gets me about this version is how it highlights the original level design. Later, FromSoft games are all about interconnected worlds, shortcuts looping back to bonfires. But Demon's Souls? It's 5 distinct worlds, each with its own vibe. Now, the atmosphere shift is also insane. The bosses are simpler than what came later, which honestly works in its favor. You're not fighting millennia-level nightmares. Instead, you're solving puzzles, figuring out gimmicks. Like the Tower Knight, where you have to take out the archers first, then hack at his ankles until he falls. It's a puzzle dressed up as a boss fight. Some people say the remake lost some of the original's dark, grimy atmosphere, that the art direction got too polished, too clean. And I get it. There's a certain oppressive weirdness to the original that's harder to find here. But if you're coming in fresh, none of that matters. You're just experiencing the blueprint for everything FromSoft would become. The combat is slower, more methodical, no jumping, no crazy weapon arts. Just you, your shield, and timing. Which honestly feels refreshing after how fast some of these games have gotten. It's pure, distilled Souls. Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. If you want to feel like a total powerhouse in a fantasy setting, then Shadow of Mordor is the game you need to install right now. You play as a ranger named Talion who is bonded with a wraith named Celebrimbor, and together you are seeking revenge against Sauron in the heart of Mordor. The big draw here is the Nemesis system, which creates unique orc captains that remember your past fights and get stronger if they kill you. What's more is that these orcs have their own personalities and weaknesses, which makes every encounter feel like a personal grudge match. The combat is heavily inspired by the Batman Arkham games, so you will be countering and execution moves with a lot of style and fluid animations. Another thing is that the world itself is a bit dark and repetitive, since it is mostly just rocks and mud, but the gameplay loop is so satisfying that you will not mind much. It is incredibly fun to mess with the orc hierarchy and watch your enemies climb the ranks just so you can take them down later. This game really nailed the feeling of being a supernatural hunter behind enemy lines, and it still feels unique today. Nier Automata.
You know nothing about humanity.
So you booted up expecting a slick action RPG about androids fighting robots in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. And for a while, that's exactly what it is. The combat is fast, the world is gorgeous in this melancholy way, ruined cities swallowed by vines, sand dunes burying entire amusement parks. You're having a good time. And then gradually, without making a big announcement about it, the game starts asking you much bigger questions. The whole premise where androids locked in an endless war against machines on behalf of humanity sounds like a clean sci-fi setup. But Yoko Taro is not interested in clean, because the machines start doing things you don't expect. They form villages, they put on plays, they fall in love, they grieve. So now you're cutting through waves of enemies who are genuinely trying to figure out what it even means to exist. The combat doesn't feel so consequence-free after that. The game needs multiple playthroughs, and they're not just the same content reshuffled. Each run shifts your perspective in a way that rewrites everything you thought you understood about the first one. What starts as a second playthrough becomes something else entirely. By the third, you're somewhere that has absolutely no business existing in a game that opened with stylish action sequences and anime aesthetics. The ending is maybe the most audacious ask a game has ever made of a player. It works on a level that turns the whole thing inside out. I still think about it. Nier Automata might not be the most polished writing on this list sentence for sentence, but as an experience that uses the medium itself as part of what it's saying, nothing else comes close. Elden Ring. Difficulty is often the first thing people mention when they talk about Elden Ring, but the real magic is the sense of discovery in its massive world. It hands you a broken world, a weapon, and a very clear message to figure it out yourself. You move through the world facing massive monsters, hidden paths, brutal bosses, and enough mystery to keep your brain in discovery mode the whole time. What makes it so special is how open the design feels without losing that classic From Software pressure. You can ride off in any direction, find something terrifying, get wrecked, leave, level up, then come back like you own the place. That loop is insanely effective. The world feels handcrafted in a way that makes every ruined castle and cursed swamp feel worth checking. And because the game trusts you to explore, every victory feels earned instead of handed out. The combat is tough, sure, but the real magic is the sense that there is always another secret waiting just beyond your current path. Even when you are getting destroyed for the 10th time, the game keeps feeding curiosity. That is why Elden Ring changed the conversation around open world design. It showed that big worlds do not have to be full of empty filler. They can be dangerous, strange, and worth every detour. At the end of the day, this is one of those games that makes failure feel like part of the fun. Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima opens with a world that looks so clean and sharp you almost do not want to disturb it. Then the invasion hits, and suddenly you are Jin Sakai trying to protect Tsushima while everything around you burns. The setup is simple, but the game turns that simplicity into something really satisfying. You ride across open fields, follow the wind instead of markers, and take on enemy camps with a combat system that feels smooth, readable, and deadly. It is the kind of game where every duel feels deliberate, and every strike has weight. And honestly, that makes the whole world easier to get attached to. The island is beautiful, the exploration is easy to enjoy, and the stealth and samurai styles both give you different ways to tackle problems. The story leans into honor, survival, and the cost of doing what needs to be done, which fits the setting perfectly. At the same time, the side content can be a little familiar if you have played enough open-world games, but the presentation helps a lot. The wind guiding you through tall grass, the music, the weather, all of it creates a strong identity. Ghost of Tsushima feels like a game that understands how to make every ride across the map feel meaningful. Fallout New Vegas. There is a reason why Fallout New Vegas is still considered the best in the series despite being over a decade old at this point. You are a courier who got shot in the head over a platinum chip, and now you are wandering the Mojave Wasteland to find the guy who did it. The writing and the player choice are on another level, because you can basically side with whoever you want, or just kill everyone if that is your style. As well as having great dialogue, the game features some of the best factions in RPG history like the NCR and Caesar's Legion. Even better is the fact that your stats actually matter in conversations, so having a high science or speech skill can completely change how a quest ends. The thing is that the game is definitely showing its age, and the graphics are pretty rough compared to modern titles. It is also famous for having a lot of glitches, but the community has fixed most of them with mods over the years. If you can look past the clunky shooting and the brown landscapes, you will find a story that is way more reactive than anything else in the franchise. It is the ultimate role-playing experience where your choices actually have consequences. The Elder Scrolls V: Skyrim. Skyrim is the game that taught a generation how dangerous the phrase "just one more quest" can be. You wake up in a fantasy world with dragons, magic, guilds, caves, giants, and a map that basically dares you to get distracted forever. The opening is famous, but the real reason people stay is because the world keeps giving you reasons to wander. You can become a mage, a stealth archer, a warrior, a thief, or some weird hybrid build that probably should not work, but absolutely does. That freedom is the secret sauce. The main story exists, sure, but it is more like a suggestion than a command. You are constantly running into side quests, random encounters, hidden dungeons, and little moments that feel like they belong to your own run. And then there is modding, which turns Skyrim into a forever game for a huge part of the player base. Technically, it shows its age in a few places, no question. But the world is so easy to live in that those rough edges almost become part of the charm. Skyrim is still the king of comfortable wandering. It lets you build your own fantasy routine, and that routine somehow never gets old. Red Dead Redemption 2.
That wasn't my fault.
It was just one of them things.
How come every time I get in trouble, I'm called a fool and an idiot? But when you get in trouble, oh, it's just one of them things.
It's a good point, Arthur.
Looking back, the way Rockstar handled this world was actually genius, because they didn't just build a map, they built a living, breathing machine that doesn't care if you're there or not. Honestly, it's a game that's kind of tempting to take for granted until you actually stop and look at the details. Like the way your reputation follows you from town to town. You can't just go on a rampage in Valentine and expect the locals to give you a warm welcome 2 days later. They remember. So the world feels heavy and permanent in a way most open worlds just can't touch. It's got that specific kind of slow burn pacing that forces you to live in Arthur's boots, which might frustrate some people, but it's exactly why the story hits so hard. I mean, you're part of this gang that's slowly falling apart, watching a leader you once worshipped start to lose his grip on reality. And the betrayal isn't just a plot point, it's this slow, suffocating realization that the life you knew is effectively dead. And the unexpected encounters, it will really catch you off guard. You'll be riding to a mission and see 2 guys trying to crack a safe in the middle of nowhere, or a guy getting kicked in the head by his own horse, which honestly makes the world feel way more rugged and dangerous than any scripted sequence could. Then there's the ending. I won't spoil the specifics, but here's the thing. It's probably one of the most unfortunate, gut-wrenching conclusions in the medium. It's a bold choice to make a game this massive feel so intimate and tragic by the time the credits roll, but it pays off, because by the end, you aren't just playing a character anymore. You're mourning a time and a man that the world simply moved past. It's one of those just one more hunt type of situations that turns into a 10-hour session before you even realize it. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a masterpiece of world building and character writing that I personally recommend to anyone who wants a great story with great worlds and good gameplay. If you haven't played it yet, you definitely have to check this one as soon as possible. It's out on almost every platform, so there's actually no reason to miss this one out. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. There's a reason why this game is also considered as one of the golden standards when it comes to open world. And to be honest, I dropped this several times before finally getting what this game actually is. The Witcher 3 opens with a world already in motion, full of war, monsters, and people trying to get by while everything falls apart around them. You're playing as Geralt, a monster hunter with a dry attitude, a long list of problems, and probably the best job in gaming if you ignore the part where it is constantly miserable. What puts this game at the top is how everything comes together. The story is strong, the characters feel alive, the side quests are better written than most main stories in other games, and the open world never feels empty just for the sake of being large. You can ride into a village expecting a quick contract and end up in a little story that sticks with you for hours. That is the magic here. The combat works, the exploration works, the dialogue works, and the world building is so solid that even small errands feel important. And the expansions only add more proof that the team knew exactly how to make this universe matter. The thing is, The Witcher 3 does not just give you a fantasy world. It gives you a world that feels messy, lived in, and worth caring about. That is why it stays at the top, and honestly, it earned every bit of that reputation. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. You know, there aren't many games where you finish and you just need a minute. You need to sit quietly for a bit before you do anything else, and I think this is one of them. Developer Ninja Theory built something here that operates on a completely different frequency than most games. You're playing as Senua, a Celtic warrior who has lived with psychosis her entire life. She hears voices constantly. She sees things. The world shifts around her in ways she can't always separate from reality. And here's the thing, the game puts that on you, not just on her. With headphones, the voices are literally in your head the whole time, whispering, taunting, warning you, contradicting each other. It is deeply uncomfortable in a way that feels completely intentional. Ninja Theory worked with actual neuroscientists and people who live with psychosis to make sure this wasn't just cheap horror. So when the world starts folding in on itself, when you genuinely can't tell what's real anymore, you're not just watching a character struggle. You're getting some small, controlled fraction of what that experience actually is. Underneath all of it is grief. Pure, devastating grief. Senua is making this journey into a version of the Norse underworld because she loved someone and she lost them, and she refuses to accept it. Every step she takes is soaked in that. By the way, if you're enjoying the list so far, hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot more of these coming, and you don't want to miss the heavier hitters toward the top. It really does help the channel out. So, thanks. Anyway, Hellblade is not a game you enjoy in the comfortable sense. You endure it. You feel it. But when it's over, you understand something you didn't before. And that's worth a lot. Detroit Become Human.
They were going to replace you, and you became upset. That's what happened, right? I thought I was part of the family. I thought I mattered. But I was just their toy.
Detroit Become Human is basically the peak of the choose-your-own-adventure genre, and honestly, no one has really topped it since. The biggest hurdle with talking about this game is explaining just how much your choices actually matter, because choice has become such a buzzword in gaming. But here, they literally show you the flowchart after every chapter. You can see the paths you didn't take, the characters who could have lived, and the entire world-changing events you completely missed. It's a game that is probably going to be the blueprint for narrative branching for a long time. You're following 3 different androids, Connor, Kara, and Marcus, as they begin to wake up and realize they're more than just machines. It's one of those what does it mean to be human type of situations, but it feels urgent because you're the one deciding how they react to the world's hate. I mean, playing as Connor and trying to decide if you're a cold investigator or something more, that's something so unique in gaming. The tension in some of these scenes is just unreal. You've got a timer ticking down, people's lives on the line, and you're sweating over a dialogue choice, which is why it works so well. It gives off this vibe of a high-stakes political thriller where the smallest gesture can have massive consequences 10 hours later. So you aren't just watching a movie, you're directing it. The production values are through the roof, and the world feels lived in and dangerously close to our own reality. It's got that specific kind of polish that keeps you hooked from the first 5 minutes. It's a bold choice to be this transparent with the mechanics, but it makes you feel the weight of every button press. Just an absolute titan of the genre. Firewatch.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
Firewatch is a game that's kind of tempting to take for granted, because on the surface, you're just a guy in a tower looking for smoke. But the thing about Firewatch is that it's actually one of the most human stories I've ever played. You're Henry, this guy who basically retreats into the Wyoming wilderness because his real life has become too much to handle. Honestly, I think we've all had that urge to just disappear into the woods when things get heavy, right? So you're out there, completely isolated with nothing but a handheld radio and the voice of your supervisor, Delilah, on the other end. The writing is just incredible. I mean, the way their relationship develops over that radio feels more real than most face-to-face dialogue in AAA games. It starts off light, almost like a summer job vibe, but then this mystery starts to bleed into the edges of the map. You start finding things that shouldn't be there. You get this feeling that you're being watched, and because you're so isolated, that paranoia really starts to sink in. It gives off this vibe of a slow burn thriller where the biggest threat might just be your own head. The art style helps too. Everything is bathed in these deep oranges and reds that make the forest look beautiful but also kind of suffocating. You're hiking through these canyons and climbing over rocks, and it's just you and your thoughts. Which is the kicker, because the game isn't really about the mystery at all. It's about why Henry is there in the first place. It's a bold choice to make a game where the ending doesn't give you a massive explosion or a boss fight, but it pays off. I've always appreciated how they didn't compromise on the grounded nature of the story. It's one of those just one more day type of situations where you just need to know what happens next. By the time the credits roll, you're left with this specific kind of quiet reflection. It's a game that is probably going to stay with you because it forces you to look at the things you're running away from. Just pure atmosphere. Makes sense why people still talk about it. It's worth the walk. What Remains of Edith Finch.
The woods around the house have always been uncomfortably silent. As if they're about to say something, but never do.
So this one got that specific kind of vibe that just sticks with you long after you're done. Like you didn't just play a game, you experienced someone's entire family history in one sitting. The thing about this one is how it tells its story through these small, self-contained moments. So you're not just walking around a house, you're stepping into these little stories, each one completely different from the last. One minute you're a kid with this wild imagination, the next you're in something that feels way darker than it should, which honestly keeps you on edge the whole time. And the way it uses gameplay to tell those stories is kind of genius. It's never complicated, but it always feels intentional. You know that feeling when a game trusts you to just get it? That's this game. It doesn't over-explain anything. It just lets you sit with what's happening, and because of that, some of these moments hit way harder than you expect. I'll be honest, there are parts here that just linger. Not because they're shocking, but because they feel weirdly personal. It's short, yeah. You can finish it in a few hours, but that doesn't even matter, because every single second feels like it has a purpose. There's no filler here, no wasted space, just story after story, each one building this bigger picture of a family that feels cursed. And yet there's something strangely beautiful about it too. Like it's tragic but also kind of peaceful in a weird way. That balance is hard to pull off. Most games either go full dark or try to soften the blow. This one just sits right in the middle, and it works. By the end, you're not really thinking about gameplay anymore. You're just thinking about everything you just saw, which is kind of the point. Disco Elysium. So Disco Elysium is basically one of the games that ruined other RPGs for me because it subverts every single expectation you have for the genre. You aren't some soldier or hero with a sword or a space marine or a powerful wizard. You're a middle-aged alcoholic detective who woke up with such a bad hangover that he literally forgot his own name and how the world works. It sounds like a joke, but it's actually the setup for the most intricate writing in the medium. The thing about this game is that the combat isn't physical. It's all happening inside your own fractured psyche. Your skills, like logic, volition, or even your literal gut feeling, are actual characters that talk to you. They argue with each other. Sometimes your Inland Empire tells you to talk to a corpse, and sometimes your Half-Light tells you to just punch a mailbox for no reason. It gives off this vibe of a total mental breakdown that you're trying to pilot like a vehicle. I mean, the level of depth in the dialogue is just insane. You can try to be a hardcore communist, a hustle-grind capitalist, or just a sorry cop who apologizes for existing. Every choice feels like it's chipping away at who this man is going to become. It's got that specific kind of dark humor where you're laughing at how pathetic things are, but then 5 minutes later it hits you with a line about loss that feels like a punch to the chest. So you're navigating this gray, beautiful, watercolor world of Revachol, trying to solve a murder while your own brain is actively sabotaging you, which is why it works. It doesn't need a combat system because trying to win an argument with your own subconscious is more tense than any boss fight. Honestly, I've never seen a game trust the player this much to just read and think. It's one of those just one more conversation type of situations. The world building is dense, the political themes are heavy, but it never feels like a lecture. It feels like life. Messy, confusing, and incredibly human.